You will die in this place.
Spoiler alert. Is Alys Rivers in House of the Dragon a ghost? Is Daemon Targaryen being tormented by the Witch of Harrenhal? Or is she just a figment of his own imagination? Now that Daemon has seen visions of Harrenhal in multiple episodes, these are relevant topics that the show will eventually need to answer. Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin has considerably clearer explanations. There, Alys Rivers is called a witch, yet her existence and/or veracity are undeniable. But the program is changing significantly, and since Daemon's dreams and interactions with her are entirely made up, anything goes. That has even hinted at Alys being a phantom of the paranormal or simply a product of her imagination. And that hypothesis isn't all that outlandish.
It's a pity, don't you think, that you never knew your mother?
Welcome to Movie Spy, evidence that explains some mysterious moments in the House of the Dragon. Alys Rivers is a ghost or doesn't exist. Alys Rivers is undoubtedly enigmatic, strong, and older than she appears to be in fact. It's possible that she is hundreds of years old, but there is also concrete proof that she is either a ghost or Daemon's imagination. She could be a symptom rather than the cause of his weird dreams and visions, which is partly the reason for this. He is experiencing very strange dreams and visions. Significantly, she doesn't communicate with anyone else in Harrenhal directly. Daemon is the only one she speaks to and who she responds to. However, in House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 5, the theory truly took off. Alys appears to vanish when Simon Strong approaches Daemon to talk, adding to the already peculiar episode, which was made further worse by Daemon's vision of his mother, according to Thrones_facts on X. There's a good chance that her disappearance is nothing more than a trick of the camera angles. But take note of how, just before she vanishes, she appears to be floating, and how, afterward, she is invisible. It might be nothing, but it might also be a huge clue from the show that she is, in fact, a ghost. Does Westeros have ghosts? There's some evidence, but no confirmation. Nothing definitive rules out the possibility of ghosts in Westeros, but there is also no evidence to support their non-existence. There are many who believe in ghosts in Westeros, just like in our own world. But at least here we know that death isn't final. In Game of Thrones, Beric Dondarrion and Jon Snow both return from the dead, while in the books A Song of Ice and Fire, Catelyn Stark also rises from the grave. Considering that and a plethora of other magical abilities, such as skin changing and green sight, it is reasonable to assume that ghosts exist. Qyburn is asked by Jaime Lannister in A Storm of Swords if he believes in ghosts. The former Maester's reaction is as follows. Qyburn is no stranger to the art of overcoming death. He is, after all, the one who transforms Gregor Clegane into something like a zombie. Since he has experimented with the dark arts and gained knowledge about magic and resurrection that the Citadel finds objectionable, he is likely the Maester who is most likely to be familiar with the truth about ghosts. What would happen if Alys Rivers were a ghost or experienced a hallucination? This would significantly alter the House of the Dragon. If Alys Rivers was a spirit or Daemon's illusion, that would alter the plot in two ways. Plot-wise, everything would continue developing in a similar way. But if Daemon is having hallucinations, it would indicate that her mental state has changed significantly more than previously believed. This would thus provide further credence to the theory that Harrenhal is cursed.
Harrenhal's been cursed since its first stone was laid.
Since she might be a ghost that haunts the location, there was an episode of Game of Thrones Season 2 called The Ghost of Harrenhal, in which Jaqen H'ghar murders the Tickler at Arya Stark's request, giving people the impression that there is a ghost. That has a very apparent explanation, of course. But it does set the stage for the possibility that Harrenhal is a truly haunted place, with a ghost living there, maybe keeping an eye on things or attempting to scare people away. This would also be noteworthy since it would be another step toward the fantastical. Even with dragons, White Walkers, and resurrections, Game of Thrones has always attempted to keep its fantasy a little more grounded. These elements are only employed when absolutely required for the story and seldom delves too far into the magical realm. In House of the Dragon, however, a ghost would alter that, giving the narrative a far more otherworldly feel. The issues with the ghost theory of Alys Rivers. Though it's not quite true, it's still a fun theory. Alys Rivers is a ghost, but one of the issues with her existence is that even if no one speaks to her, people still appear to stare at her. A few times since she's entered a room, someone has looked up. In the video up top, Simon Strong even turns his head and seems to be staring at her. This doesn't prove anything, though, because they might sense her presence. And if Simon can't see Alys, he might even be trying to figure out who or what Daemon was talking to. It's also important to note that when Daemon initially gets to the castle, Alys is already at Harrenhal. She is seen in the room with Simon and the others. And this is prior to him beginning to take weird potions and sleep in a weirwood bed. Though it would seem to rule out her being a hallucination, unless Daemon was immediately impacted by Harrenhal. That technically does not mean she cannot be a ghost. Furthermore, undermining the notion that Alys is a ghost is her story in the book. There is no genuine possibility that she is a ghost in fire and blood, because she is a person for whom there is a definite historical record. Again, that doesn't mean it can't happen in the show. But given that Aemon Targaryen plays a big part in her story, and that he would also need to be seeing her despite her being a ghost or experiencing hallucinations, it would be an unexpected development. More likely, Alys Rivers is a strong greenseer. Alys is associated with the weirwood trees. Given that people with green sight are able to see into the future, the fact that Alys Rivers appears to be aware of what is in Daemon's dreams, and may even be actively implanting and influencing them, raises the possibility that she is a greenseer. She had previously described herself as a barn owl, which would also make more sense given that all greenseers are skin changers. In addition to explaining how she can directly influence and view Daemon's dreams, we've seen the three-eyed raven, or crow in the books, behave similarly to Bran. This would also explain how she is aware of a lot of the events occurring in the Riverlands. Daemon had a vision of his mother. Speaking to Daemon, Alys says, "What I hear in the wind." This is consistent with her turning into a real barn owl, but it also quotes several passages from the book, A Song of Ice and Fire from Bran's perspective. Whispers on the wind are mentioned several times, and they are closely related to his vision and greensight. For instance, Jojen informs Bran in A Dance with Dragons, while discussing how relatively few individuals are greenseers. Notable in these cases is also the correlation that weirwood trees, which are commonly associated with wind whisperings, have with whisperings of leaves. Alys's connection to the weirwood trees is also quite evident. She points out that Daemon's bed is constructed of heart trees, and the potion she gives him appears to be maybe a weirwood paste. She also sees one of the weirwood trees next to her after having a vision. It makes considerably more sense that Alys is a strong greenseer rather than a ghost. The reason why she is ignored by other nobles in the castle can also be explained fairly simply. Because she is thought to be a bastard, hence the Rivers' surname nobles frequently choose to ignore her and act as though she doesn't exist. Daemon engages with her because she consistently shows up in his visions. But even though that's an intriguing theory, it doesn't imply that she's not genuine. With Daemon, what does Alys Rivers want?